everybody. This is John, and we're going to talk about a little bit about how he's dealing with his hernia and seeing positive results. He had sent me an email and had some good feedback for me, so I figured I would get him on, and we can kind of go through his situation and what he's doing to have a positive impact on his hernia. So, so go ahead, and if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and how old you are, what you do for a living.
Yeah, George, I've just turned 63, which seems a bit scary, but I've got to say I'm doing a lot of training these days and feeling as good as I was in my 20s. So I've got a trade business. We do architectural metalwork such as driveway gates and balustrades, that sort of thing. So about a year ago, it was about July 2020, I was unloading, I was having to move my office, and I was lifting a whole heap of sort of heavy boxes out of the back of a Ram pickup truck. And if you're familiar with them, they've got pretty high sides. So I was standing next to it and sort of reaching over and grabbing these toolboxes and office stuff. And I just felt a bit of a twinge down low in the abdomen and didn't think that much of it. But then a few days later, it became obvious there was a little bit of a lump forming there. And because I'd had an inguinal hernia on the other side 15 years ago, I was pretty sure what it was. So it gradually, I just left it be for a little while. And then I went and saw the doctor who actually did my hernia repair 15 years ago. And he's a really, highly regarded surgeon, and I was glad to be in his hands. But I'd always thought, you ask any doctor, there's only one way to fix a hernia, and that's surgery. And you will not hear anything different. And because we all got mixed up with COVID and that, I was going to have it operated on late last year. And because I just thought there's no other way than to, and it was getting fairly bad. It was starting to really bulge out and give me a lot of discomfort. So then the surgery got cancelled because of COVID. What it's like, they had a bit of a scare here in Sydney and they deferred all elective surgery. So, I thought, I'll have a look, and I just sort of looked around the internet to see, is there any possible way of dealing with this other than surgery? And somehow I stumbled across your website, and I was just amazed at, someone actually claims they've had an inguinal hernia and have, I don't know if you want to call it cured or put into remission or whatever, but it sounded like, you're sort of similar to me, a surfer, you're really active. You don't want to be, have your life constricted by the hernia.
Right.
But like me, you sort of would rather avoid surgery if it was possible. Yeah. And so I got onto your website and started, I bought your program. I bought some of the Comfort Trust's gadgets, and at first I bought the wrong size, then I had to order another one, a smaller size. No. I think shipping costs more than the product coming over to Australia. And I started wearing it. It was really helpful because you didn't have to worry about the hernia bulging when you're just doing day-to-day activities. So it was good to have that sort of taken care of. And then I just started I saw your exercise program. I thought, oh, geez, am I ever going to really do this consistently? And I thought, probably not. But I do all the other things. I do the EFT. I've been doing that for years. I follow a whole food plant-based diet, and they were two big aspects of your program that were not a problem for me. Right. And then I went and saw my physio, and he just said, look, we've got no experience dealing with hernias because everyone just gets them repaired surgically. So he sort of had I told him about your program, and he said, oh, look, there's no harm in trying, but we've got to focus on strengthening those pelvic floor muscles and those muscles that are a few layers deep. Right. And what I did was had a couple of sessions with him, and really he was just sort of guessing this might help. And what he did was put the ultrasound over my abdomen, and he could tell when I was able to switch on those deeper core muscles. Oh, really? And once I got the hang of that, I could then, I kept practicing doing I would call them pelvic floor muscles, where you're pull everything upwards,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just visualized or imagined the muscles that go across the lower abdomen as tightening in that direction. You probably know more than me about what they're actually called. I think you might say it's transversus or abdominis transversus.
Yeah, it's a transversus abdominis.
That's it. So I found I kept just doing those exercises, like lying on the bed and just getting used to switching those muscles on.
Yeah.
And then I'd been sort of avoiding using my rowing machine because I thought it would make the hernia worse. But then I got onto the rowing machine and I was able to switch on those muscles at the start of each stroke. And then I found, well, nothing went wrong. In fact, then it started to get better fairly quickly, the hernia. So I thought, geez, this is really working. I won't have to do all George's exercises, but I don't mind doing the rowing machine because I do it anyway. I want to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And quite quickly, you know, probably over a month or two, I was able to stop using the truss. And these days, I don't even think about using it. I haven't used it probably for about a month and a half, 2 months.
That's awesome.
But
and that only took you about 2 months?
I think so, yeah. What I noticed, there's a few things that really made a difference for me. Bread's probably a food that I'm better off avoiding, but I love it. It's a bit slightly addictive. And anything that obstructs the bowel, I find is a problem because I don't know how it all works, but if you don't drink enough water or don't have enough fibrous food, and then it's hard to, you know, go to the toilet, and you've got a strain, that's when it can sort of push the hernia out.
Right.
So I paid a lot of attention to making sure I just stick on the good diet, drink plenty of water.
Yeah.
So that you can go a couple of times a day without any effort. And as you recommend, it's sort of squatting on the loo is even better. That can make it really easy. So I found that's really important. And the other thing for me was my stress response. And I'm fairly sure it was probably part of the cause of the hernia. If I got stressed, I could be standing there. The hernia would not even be bulging in the slightest. And honestly, a couple of minutes later, it would be really painful and bulging like half a tennis ball coming out.
Right. Yeah.
And so the stress response, the link to stress is so clear to me. So I use the EFT and, you know, clear that stress. And now I don't have that happening at all. So it's pretty much as if I don't have a hernia now.
That's it. That's the one part that always amazed me is that stress response and how critical that is to making your hernia go away. And a lot of people will write that off, you know, and say, no way, it has, you know, there's no way if I just strengthen the muscles, then it's going to hold it back. But that stress and, you know, the emotional part of it is a huge aspect of it that people just overlook, you know?
Yeah, I think I was having a lot of stress in my life at the time the hernia happened. So whether, you know, lifting those boxes out of the back of the truck was the straw that broke the camel's back or the stress was, who knows? But it was a very stressful time.
What is EFT? Like, what does that entail? Like, what exactly is that?
Oh, that's the tapping. I think that's on your protocol, isn't it? The tapping on the meridian points.
No, EFT is not. No.
Oh,
I talk a lot about the you know, stress and repressed emotions and things like that that play into why you have a hernia and how it's used as a defense mechanism to keep your subconscious off of the off of the feelings that your subconscious is trying to suppress.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
EFT, I don't talk about the EFT at all. So I'm interested in hearing about that.
I haven't looked at your program actually for a while. I just looked at it initially and then thought, yep, this will make sense. I'll do this and I'll just modify the exercise program and to use my rowing machine, you know, instead. And that was just an experiment to see if it would work. But once I could switch those core muscles on at the start of each stroke, then it became second nature. So I just switch them on every stroke now.
Right.
And I don't even have to think about it. And I can do some pretty hard efforts on the rowing machine, like maximum resistance, really slow stroke rate, which gives you a lot of resistance. It's like doing squats with a barbell.
Right.
And I'm just not only not having a problem, it's just getting better and better. So But back to your question about EFT, yeah, that stands for emotional freedom techniques, and that's becoming fairly widely, known about now. There's plenty of practitioners in the States and in Australia that do it, and it just involves when you have a distressing feeling, and it could be anxiety, it could be sadness, whatever. You tap on various points in the body that are meridian points. And we're not quite sure how it works, but it seems to send a soothing signal to the brain. And I find for me, probably within half an hour, the unpleasant or distressing feelings just disappear. And then the hernia will disappear as well if it was bulging. So
really,
I found it's a bit like a mindfulness practice. The way I employ it quite often,
right?
You focus on the feeling in your body and do the tapping around the various points of the body.
Right.
We use about 8 of them, and like it just disappears for me. Some people it disappears nearly instantly. I always seem to have about a half-hour delay.
Right.
But
how did you learn it? Like, where did you go to learn that?
I actually have been an EFT coach for probably about 8 years.
Okay.
And there's a place in the States called EFT Universe that, teaches people how to do it, to be coaches or just how to learn the technique.
Right.
You can just look it up online. There's thousands of people out there now coaching. So EFT, or tapping it gets known as well, because you do literally tap on various points on the body. So I find it works really well for me. Yeah. And because stress, you probably relate to this. I think you had a trade business yourself, didn't you?
Right. Yeah. I was a carpenter. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, you get to a job site and things are starting not to go quite to plan, and you think, geez, I've quoted so much on this and it's going to take me twice as long.
Yeah.
And the stress is starting to build up inside, and I could literally feel the hernia it's like someone is pumping it up with an air pump. It was starting to bulge out.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And the pain could be quite bad. I'd actually have to stand there and press it back in discreetly, because that's how it get quite bad at times. And but it was so related to stress. It was just like someone hit the switch and the hernia would pop.
Yeah. I think a lot of people that will relate to that, because I have a feeling that whether they're conscious about it or now that they heard you say it, they'll probably pay a lot more attention to it. Like, what's going on right now? Why am I feeling my hernia so much? Like, I use the example, like if you have to go in and talk to your boss or something like that, you know what I mean? Like, put yourself in kind of a situation where you're uncomfortable, and then all of a sudden you feel all this pressure on your hernia. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? It wasn't poking out like this before. And it's just, it's just really that stress response just like inflames it and just pushes it out.
It's just amazing. I can't believe the correlation between, stress and that hernia. So it's been sometimes I can get stressed and I can feel a little bit of very light pain in that area, but it doesn't pop out anymore. I just presume because the muscles have got a lot stronger. Right. So it doesn't pop out even if I do get stressed. But I've really dealt with the stress a fair bit in the last, 6 to 12 months. So it's really nowhere near the problem it was when the hernia happened. So the exercises that you're doing to strengthen the transversus abdominis and the pelvic floor muscles, is that the ab vacuum that you're doing? Is that what, sorry? The ab vacuum, where you suck your stomach in and up? And then, stuck, sort of try and pull up genitals upwards into your body. And then when you sort of pull things up, I mentally switch on the muscles, like going sideways across the lower abdomen. Right. And all I know is that I did that with the physio, and he had the ultrasound machine on me, and I watched the screen and watched the muscles moving on the screen, which was really helpful, so if you do it correctly or not. Right. So I really only had 2 sessions with the physio, because he said, look, I don't really know much. We don't have a protocol for dealing with this, because no one tries to fix hernias except by surgery. Right. So, or wearing a truss all the time, which, is a bit nuisance. And yours is was very comfortable.
Yeah.
But I'd rather wear nothing if I could.
Yeah, of course. That's the whole idea, is to, you know, throw that thing in the trash eventually and not have to wear it.
Yeah. So now I can paddle out on my ocean ski, which is quite a twisting motion. I've done rowing for 25 years, and hasn't been a problem. Obviously, I use the rowing machine and can row in still water.
Yeah.
And I my surf ski, to get out in the sort of bumpy stuff on the ocean. And that used to give me a lot of grief. The hernia would bulge, and I'd get back to shore and have to push it all back in again.
Right.
It's like really uncomfortable, but that just doesn't happen now. So it's so I'd call it, maybe I've got to do this routine the rest of my life to keep it in check. But I think, well, what's the downside? All the things we're doing are really good for us. Eating right, getting rid of stress, keeping physically strong.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. It's sort of going to make me do it. So well, my surgery is still I'm still on the list, but I've deferred it actually until early next year as the first possibility. And I just think, well, I'll keep it up the sleeve, but the way it's going, I don't think I'm going to need it, and probably won't do it. So yeah.
That's awesome. And that's really fast too. That's it. When I hear that you did that in 2 months, it kind of pisses me off a little bit, because it took me so long to figure things out.
Yeah.
I was trying stuff for like 3.5 years of, just doing trial and error and trying to figure things out till I actually put a plan in place to fix all these things, and then ended up seeing results. So that's I'm really happy to hear that it happened so fast for you.
I just admire your persistence, because like they say, you ask any doctor, oh no, there's no way to fix this except surgery, and you just kept trying and not accepting that as the answer. And
I knew that there had to be another way. That's that's why I wanted to share this, your story with people, because people need to know that there is another way, and that people are actually doing this. They're actually reducing their hernia. If they're not fully healing it, they're at least reducing it to a point where you can function in your life like you don't have a hernia, basically, from what you're saying. And that's how I live my life.
Yeah, I just, I get out of bed each day, I think, oh, I can't believe it. Because it used to be a real nuisance. As soon as you get out of bed, like honestly, 5 minutes later, it'd start to be, I suppose it's just gravity pushing things down. And 5 or 10 minutes later, it's starting to push out, and I think, oh no, here we go again. Yeah. And so I've always kept generally pretty fit, and been doing, rowing and paddling and running up until the injury. But then I really had to lighten off, because the doctor said, don't, lift more than 20 pounds or something. And I thought, oh, that's the end of rowing machine and rowing. And I'll just have to maybe get away from running. But even running, I'd run and it would start to bulge out, and you're running along trying to hold it in as well.
So all that pounding, like as you're making those steps, all that pounding is like pushing all your organs down into that weakness. I
think that's what it is. Yeah. The other thing that is probably a part of this is we lost about 5 kilos, 10, 12 pounds since I started the program, and I think that helps as well, to make sure you're pretty trim. So you don't want to be carrying excess fat, especially as you get older. It tends to gather around the core of the body, the visceral fat, as they call it. Pretty dangerous for us anyway. So we don't want to. So yeah, it's sort of like a blessing. I'm sort of glad I have this hernia, to be honest. It's
I feel the same way. Yeah. I know for me, it helped me through so much other stuff that I was dealing with my body. I had back pain, and I had pain in my shoulder, pain in my knee. There was all these different pains that I was dealing with that I had to work through in order to get to where I am now, because of the hernia. It's the real reason why I went through all that,
Yeah. I'm just amazed at your persistence with trying to work out a program, and, especially with you don't appear to have any medical background or expertise.
No, not at all. No, not at all.
I'm the same. But I just thought, no, once I got inspired by yours and I saw all those exercises, I thought, oh, God, I'm not going to do this every day. I just know I'm not going to do it. So I thought I'll try the rowing machine, because I know I'll do that. Yeah. And that's just worked a treat. So, So
and really it all, as far as strengthening the muscles, that retraining your transversus abdominis is really, sounds like for that's how it was for me. It sounds like the same thing for you, is retraining your transversus abdominis to switch on all the time when you're doing activities that you have to retrain that muscle to just be switched on. Because I think we get lax and from sitting around or from whatever else, that muscle is not used to having to be tightened up while we're doing things, and that's how it occurs. I think. You know? So is that? Would you say that that's what it was for you too? You have to kind of mentally retrain that.
Yeah, and then it became second nature. It's just sort of on all the time when I'm exercising, and I don't really have to think about it. But that session with the physio, even though he didn't really, you know, it was really a stab in the dark. He had no idea what to do really.
Right.
Putting that ultrasound on and learning how to switch on, know what it feels like to switch on those muscles was really helpful.
Yeah.
So even if that's all people did, just to get that understanding of when you've actually activated those muscles, it's I think really helpful. So so hernia surgeons won't like us because we'd put them out of business if everyone listens to it.
I know that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping we can get enough people to get good results like this, to be able to actually, so when you do go to a physio, they say, yeah, we have this protocol that you can follow and you can try it. You know what I mean? See if this works for you. If it doesn't, surgery is always an option. It's not like, you know, nobody should ever get surgery, because surgery is the right path for some people. But if you don't want to get surgery, it's at least worth a try to try and be proactive about it and fix the hernia, rather than just sitting around and do watchful waiting. Like,
watchful waiting. Yeah. So my doctor was a bit, you know, he was a bit skeptical. He said, "Oh, well, it's nothing to lose," which is true. There's nothing to lose, so why not? But as I've said, it's really like a very holistic approach to, you know, fix a lot of things in your life. Yeah. We all want to be eating well, you know, dealing with stress properly. Yeah. Being, you know, physically strong is really important, especially as you get older. So, so there's like, who cares if it's, you know, you got to keep doing it. Right. I want to do it anyway. So it's if that makes me do it, well, that's a good reason not to get it repaired. Right. Yeah, exactly. And did you say that you're a vegetarian or vegan? Yeah. I eat a plant-based diet. Okay. So no animal foods at all. Okay. And it's not a vegan. I mean, it is vegan, but it's not called a vegan, because there's plenty of junk food, vegan foods out there. Right. Yeah. So it's pretty much the protocol if you watch a movie like Forks Over Knives, for instance. I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah, I have. And there's plenty of programs in the States that, you know, Rip Esselstyn has got his Engine 2 program, and there's Dr. John McDougall up in Santa Rosa, California there. So there's quite a few that, you know, will soon teach people how to do the whole food plant-based eating. And so I find, you've got to really, well, for me, and I think you've got to have bowel motions that are just very low effort. You don't want to be draining. And again, it's really good for us anyway to eat lots of fibrous food and unprocessed food. So, so again, it's it's just forcing us to do things we should be doing anyway. Yeah. And you said that the bread that was not good for it didn't have a good reaction with the hernia. No, bread for me, especially, like, I made the mistake only about 4 to 5 days ago of eating. I love it, you know, that really lovely crusty white bread. And I normally never touch it. And I ate probably the equivalent of three rolls in one day. And the next day, I was really seized up, and I thought, geez, this has happened to me a couple of times. I thought, especially white bread, because it's just about got no fiber in it. Right. That really does, you know, stop the bowel motion. Yeah. And so, but even bread, like even wholemeal bread, it's better, but it still has a similar effect. And plus you're getting a lot of calories and not much nutrients from bread. So it's, I love it, but it's something I should have very little of. And some people, you know, don't react well to the gluten in bread as well. So I don't think that's the case for me, but it's just a food that I'm better off having very little of. Yeah. Have you noticed the same thing with like pasta? Like if you eat pasta, Pasta's better because I'll normally mix in, a sauce with plenty of vegetables in it as well. So you're getting a lot more fibre that way. But I imagine pasta with just a sort of thin tomato sauce would probably be not great either. But I think it is better than bread. It doesn't break down. It takes longer to break down, whereas bread breaks down pretty instantly.
Yeah.
So I think pasta would be, a second tier food perhaps to avoid, or just as long as you have plenty of vegetables with it, so you're getting that fibre. So I try and have a really big leafy green salad every day, and I'll put some starch with it, like some dry baked potatoes, just diced up, or some brown rice, black rice. Just to, I tend to like a bit of starch with it.
Right.
Lots of legumes. I think legumes are really good for gut health generally, and at keeping bowel motions, pretty low effort and regular.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, basically that whole food plant-based diet, I think it's, whether you got a hernia or not, it's probably the best thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm, like I say, I'm now 63, and I'm honestly feeling. I gave up running probably 15 years ago because I kept getting injuries, and now I'm back. I can do 10Ks, 6 miles without much problem, and paddling and I can do an hour on the row machine doing interval works. I could probably do 2 hours if I wanted to, but 1 hour is certainly about my mental limit.
Right.
And most people sort of conk out on rowing machines after about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I've been doing them a long time, so I guess I've built up muscles for it. But I feel physically better, I think, as on par with what I did in my 20s and 30s when I was training at a pretty high level. So it's
that's unreal.
A good place to be at this age. So
and that's what I always tell people about myself too. Like I feel better now. I'm 47. I feel better now than I did in my 20s, for sure.
Yeah. I could say that. I'm probably not quite as fast, but I can go, do really long efforts, and I don't have any. I don't need any recovery time. Like I'll just bounce back, get back into work. Next day I could do it again. I don't have a think, oh God, I've got to take a week to recover from that session. It's nothing like that.
Right.
So
what's your like sugar intake like? Do you eat a lot of sugar or no sugar or?
I don't add any sugar to anything I eat. I just no added sugar, salt, or added oils either. So it's just get the oils out of the food, like avocado or nuts. Eat it as part of the whole food, not as a refined oil like you pour on afterwards. So I've just followed that plant-based diet pretty much for about 10 years or so now, and that has made a huge difference to how I So it's just basically the least processed food possible, and lots of fibre, and for me, no animal foods, which I don't struggle with. Some people can't seem to give them up, but I've never really liked them much anyway, so that's been easy. So
that was a little bit of a problem for me when I stopped eating meat. The first time I tried, I just kind of I just stopped and I went vegan, and I wasn't really paying attention to my nutrients intake, like proteins and carbs and things like that. I just kind of just started eating vegetables, and I could feel like I was struggling really bad, like I was starving for protein, so I ended up going back and eating some meat again, and then I stopped again, and I paid a lot more attention to actual foods that were giving me protein from my body to actually have energy throughout the day. And since then, I've been fine, no problem at all. But it took a little bit of practice.
Yeah, but I just find legumes are sort of something some people don't tolerate them so well, but I think it just means your gut has to get used to them over time.
Right.
But I have no problem, and that gives me all the protein I need. And I think we don't need that nearly as much as is made out anyway. So, I'm big on the complex carbs. That's the mainstay of my diet. So, and plenty of leafy green vegetables. That's I wouldn't say they're my favourite food, but I make sure I have a big salad every day, and I feel great for doing that. So,
and how big was your hernia, like at its worst?
I would say at times it could pop. I would say it'd be as if half a tennis ball was popping through. Yeah,
wow.
like it's maybe not quite that big, but yeah, big, definitely bigger than a golf ball. Between a golf ball and tennis ball.
Right.
So and like
good size.
Pretty scary to look at a couple of times. Like it really bulged out.
Yeah.
Oh shit. This looks pretty scary.
Yeah. And did it ever get to a point like where like as soon as you got up out of bed, it would just pop out?
Yeah. At one part it was like that. You get out of bed and you think, oh good, it's not going to pop out today, but maybe 5 minutes later it did.
Yeah.
So yes, at times I would wake up and as soon as I stood up it would start to bulge out. You would just feel it would just get bigger and bigger and bulge out. So that was really disappointing. You think, oh God, I'm going to have a day off from it today. And, and start walking around 5 minutes later. Oh no, we're not after. And then at least once I got your trust, that made life a lot more bearable, while you're in this phase of strengthening the muscles and dealing with the stress and eating better. And so you definitely need something to wear, and the truss is really, it's very comfortable. That's what I liked about it. It's just that it's just like wetsuit material, and it really doesn't make life too difficult wearing it. You just got
that's what a lot of the reviews that we get like on the website. That's pretty much, there's like a common theme of people saying that they forget they have it on, or they don't feel like they're wearing a truss, and it does kind of just go away after a couple of days of getting used to it. You know what I mean? And then it kind of just goes away.
Yeah, I know. Once I got it sorted out and got the adjustments right, and then I had to order another one a smaller size. That was I got that right, and then it was just put it on, and you hardly know it's there. Yeah. But it was great to actually start not, to notice, oh, I haven't used it today, and nothing's happened.
Yeah.
So that went from, a couple of days a week I'd have to wear it to eventually no days. And where we're at now, I just haven't worn it probably for about a month, I'd say. So it's
that's awesome.
So
I just love hearing that. I love hearing that so much, because this literally was my purpose for doing this whole thing, was to get people to the point where you are right now and where I am right now, where you don't need the truss anymore.
No, it's life is normal at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't know if I stop doing all the exercise, and if I go backwards and don't do all the things, maybe it'll come back again. Probably will. But so I wouldn't say it's cured as in I could do whatever I like. But it's a bit like saying, well, you've cured your headache by stop banging your head against the walls. If you start doing it again, you'll probably get a headache.
Yeah, exactly.
But like I say, I'm sort of glad I've got it, because it just gives me no option but to do these lifestyle measures, which I want to do anyway.
Right.
Just an added incentive.
Yeah.
So it's
that's
so
awesome.
it's but I was just amazed at your program, the persist, how you persevered for years. Not many people would have done that. I think they would have given up and thought, oh well, I've got to go to the surgeon.
And that's it. That was just comes from that, like I talk about in the program, like the reason why. You just have to have a really strong reason why you want to go this way, and not just go and get surgery. And for me, that was, I really wanted to prove to the medical establishment that there has to be another way to do this. That was the first thing. And then the second thing was that, I know that my kids, especially, but my wife and my kids are watching me go through this. And I don't want them to see me quit. I wanted to set a good example for my kids, to show them that if you persevere, you can figure this out. You can figure things out and work through them, and and turn your problems into something good, just like what happened to both of us. And it ends up being a good thing when you work through it and deal with it in the right way.
I mean, I hope your program becomes a sort of protocol that gets of course, when you mention it to the doctors, oh, well, there's no randomized control study to prove this has got any effect and all that bullshit.
Right.
You know, they just seem to be so scared to try anything these days unless they've got some trial to verify it works. And of course, no one's going to do a trial on this because there's no money in it. Very little.
Yeah, exactly. There's no reason for them to do it.
No, there's plenty of money in surgery and drugs, but so I tend to have a very I don't reject what the medical profession offers, but I am very skeptical, and I'll question and I'll look and not just accept the first answer they give you about a problem. Right. So because they only get taught one way, and that's the only thing they know. So that's just my nature. I'm very very questioning and just have this bit of a not slightly anti-medical approach, but on the other hand, I'll certainly use procedures and drugs for short-term measures, but I definitely prefer to avoid long-term medication. I'll something for a short period, but I don't want to be on something for life.
Same here.
And surgery's the same. Look, I had a very good result with the hernia on the other side, like 15 years ago. Hasn't given me a problem since, but these meshes have been in the news a bit, especially for women, and they can really, make life pretty miserable if they don't go well. Yeah. And surgery always has some risk, so better avoid it if it can be. But but obviously it's good for some people that it's possible. Yeah.
What kind of surgery did you get? Was it laparoscopic or was it open surgery?
Yeah, laparoscopic. So that was the surgeon I've got. He's a professor these days, and he's very experienced. And I certainly felt I'd be in good hands with him. But just better not to if you don't have to. Right. So you can get all sorts of infections in hospitals these days that can be pretty nasty, and things can just go wrong. So or not go as planned. So I'd rather avoid the risk if I can.
So what were you were in your late 40s when you had the other one operated on?
Early 40s. I am 40, not very good at maths. 40, about 45ish. Yeah, 45, 48, something like that. Yeah, and that actually was done after I did a really hard session on a rowing machine.
Oh, really?
I just, cranked it up to maximum resistance. I was in, rowing team at a surf club here, and we were doing sessions, and blokes are like when they get together, they just want to try and outdo each other. Right. And I was just going hard as anything, and then a couple of days later, I started to get this pain down in the lower abdomen. I thought, oh, what's going on here? And I realised, it was a hernia that was diagnosed, and then we had to get it. Well, I just took their word for it that there was no other option than surgery. I didn't even question it. So, so beware of rowing machines.
Well, I think it's cool that you had both. You kind of have both experiences. So you have you had surgery on one that went fine, and no problems from that. But now you're dealing with the other one naturally, and you're doing great with that, having positive results with that. So
so I've got one of each. And apparently you are at risk of when you do get a hernia on one side, apparently statistically you're likely to get it on the other side later at some stage. But who knows if that's caused by the first one or it's just because of your lifestyle that's going to catch up with you or something.
Right. Yeah. If you were doing all the stuff that you were doing now back then, you probably wouldn't have gotten to the point where you had a second hernia now,
That's right. Yeah. So it's so I'm really really pleased with the way it's going. I thought as you know, I sent you off an email a week or two back, and thought just wanted to let you know how even though I haven't followed your program to the letter, you got me started, and I just played around with an alternative exercise regime that's worked for me, and but keep if anyone's going to go out and copy what I'm doing, they've got to keep in mind I've been doing rowing and rowing machines for probably 25 years. So I've got a lot of, muscles that are, used to that. So if anyone started rowing, they'd probably want to do it gently at first and develop the muscles, because it's a pretty hard workout, rowing machines. So, but I think this worked well for me.
Did you start out with it? Did you have any pelvic postural issues, like anterior pelvic tilt or anything like that?
I don't believe so. I didn't really investigate. I mean, I looked at myself in the mirror after I, saw. I didn't think I did have it, and so I didn't sort of go investigating further with a physio or anything, and just sort of got into the rowing machine again, and then to fix everything. Plus, plus the diet, plus making sure the bowel motions are not you don't need much effort, and the stress. So it was all just attending to all those things at once, and it seems to be like the magic formula that's working for me.
Yeah, so, that's awesome, man. I'm so glad to hear your story and to be able to put this out there for other people to hear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think somebody, somebody will see this and they'll resonate with what you're saying, and it'll just turn their mind on to, to think about maybe going naturally instead of getting surgery, or at least giving it a try before they get cut open. And that's
I mean,
what it's all about, is at least, exhausting all your options before you go and get cut on, Yeah,
that's right. I mean, even if you're on the waiting list for surgery, just put it a year out or something and give this a try in the meantime. And honestly, I was pretty skeptical. I thought, I don't think this is going to work, but I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I've got the surgery up the sleeve anyway. But I'm just so amazed. I really am amazed at the difference and how quick it's been, really. So so that's why I thought I was shooting.
Amazing. It's amazing.
So so I'm very, very pleased, and I'm very thankful to have discovered your website. I was doing a lot of Googling before I found it too. So I was.
Yeah, they like to bury me pretty deep in Google. I was up at the top for a long time. Like when I first started writing on my blog, I was up at the top on the first page, and then all of a sudden one day they knocked me down to the 10th page, and I've slowly been kind of creeping back up a little bit since then. But I mean, they hammered me. They don't want you to find natural cures for anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit the same with COVID at the moment. If you mention anything that's not towing the official line, they just shut you up and get rid of you. So
exactly. It's easy for them just to flip a switch and say, see ya. You don't exist anymore. Like literally, you don't exist anymore. So.
No, they don't want programs like yours that might challenge the medical, the orthodox thinking. And in case we think for ourselves and heal ourselves without the aid of the surgeon.
Can't do that.
No. Those poor surgeons have got to be kept in work.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it was really nice talking to you. I'm glad that you reached out and we were able to do this and get this out for people. Do you have any social media or anything like that you would want to share for people to maybe ask you questions? If you don't, that's fine. I just like to ask just in case. Yeah,
look, I have got a Facebook account. I don't think I've posted anything on it for about 2 years.
Yeah.
My company website is pretty easy to find, but it's called JB Wrought Iron. We're in Sydney.
Okay.
So that's probably the easiest way to find me, but you wouldn't think you'll be getting answers from a metalwork website, but people are free to send me an email via that website. That's probably the easiest way to find. And I'm happy to, give people, share my experience, but they'll obviously have to work it out for themselves if it's going to work for them. But like we say, there's just no harm in anything we're doing. It's all up. If it doesn't work, well, what have you lost? Nothing, and you've probably gained a lot. You've got a lot healthier in the process. So
exactly.
No doubt. It's a risk-free proposition anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So So I'd be happy to spread the word, and just as I say, glad I found you down there on about the 8th or 10th page somehow. I just kept kept going past all the crazy, magic potions, and I thought, I'm not going to do any of those. So and your website resonated with me because we're a bit similar into the surfing and keeping pretty active, and I thought, this is impressive. So so that was good.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you found me. I'm glad we could do this, and keep me updated. You know, shoot me an email if you know anything changes, better for worse, or anything like that.
Yeah,
shoot me an email.
Sure. Keep you posted and see how it goes. But at the moment, it looks, as long as I keep sticking to my protocol, it's all going well. So
all right.
I'm sure I'll tell the surgeon, and he'll just dismiss it as a free, you know, a one-off event. So we'll just say you never had one to start with, but he did diagnose it, and you know, definitely had me booked. And I know a hernia when I see it. So
right, you had one already. So
yeah, you don't get sort of half a tennis ball lump sticking out of you if nothing happening.
Right. And I have a couple other guys that I've been talking to that are doing the same thing and having really good results too, that I'm going to do a couple more interviews with, and you know, get that out there too. And I'm hoping just to kind of start a thing where a lot more people start responding to the protocol, whether it's mine or whether they take some aspects of it and add their own, just like you did, you know what I mean? And hopefully I get a bunch of people. And if it gets to a point where there's so many people that they can't ignore that, you can't ignore that anymore, you know? So, you know, if people are able to find that information and actually put it to use, then you know, I'm not gonna be able to ignore that. You know.
I know. Let's see. Hopefully it takes off and spreads, because it's doing a lot of good, even if it doesn't fix their hernia for some reason. But I'm pretty sure it will if they persist long enough. But
I agree.
Certainly nothing wrong with eating well, getting rid of stress, and keeping strong and fit. So so there's certainly benefits in doing the program, even if you do have to have the surgery in the end. But
I appreciate you calling and doing this with me. I really do. It's important. It's super important to me. So I'm glad that we were able to connect.
I'm really appreciative, you know, for finding you and your program, and it's made a very big difference. So more than happy to help the program spread.